So, in the last few days, obviously the big news story has been the Singapore summit. Here in the UK, Brexit continues to be an ongoing issue. It's in the news every day. But there's been another big development in the last few days that has been overshadowed by events in Singapore, which understandably got the main headlines. But basically, there's been a diplomatic dispute between France and Italy over a migrant ship known as let me get this right, the Aquarius. Now, apparently, what had happened is this vessel containing 629 people, including pregnant women, was in something of a diplomatic stalemate between different countries. Italy, under a new populist government, and I'm not saying that in a derogatory way, I'm just saying it as a statement of fact, um, has refused to let the ship dock, so it therefore opened up to Spain, the province of Valencia. Um, and there's been a lot of testy words between the countries involved. Emmanuel Macron in France has been scathing of the Italian position, and one of his ministers, Gabriel Attal, a spokesman for Mr. Macron's La République en Marche party, I'm just reading from the London Times here, said the line of the Italian government makes you want to vomit. It is inadmissible to use human lives for petty politics. In Spain, Shimo Puig, president of the Valencia region, called Mr. Salvini's stance despicable. Um, so apparently, at national level, the government of Pedro Sanchez hasn't criticised Italy or Malta, but at local level, i.e., um, in the Valencia region, there has been criticism. Um, but this apparently doesn't mean that Madrid is going to have an open door policy. And that would be very wise because I think that open door policy that Angela Merkel introduced in 2015 has been proven in hindsight to be disastrous because it has allowed a situation that has made people complacent that Europe as a whole is an open door. Um, and I suppose this would be one of the main arguments against the European Union. But that's, there's a lot of issues involved in that. I'm not going to bring them all into one video. But Angela Merkel continues to be stubborn on this issue. Apparently, she has refused proposals within Germany for measures to reject asylum seekers. In other words, she's still just stubbornly clinging onto this idea that you can have a situation when an unlimited number of people can come into Europe. Um, Let me lay out my position on this so it's absolutely clear, because this is something that can become very polarizing and very politicized. Italy, by the way, has hit back. The new Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte has said he's not going to take lectures from hypocritical leaders, and I see what he's driving at with that. In fact, Macron's government didn't open up any French ports to this vessel, whilst at the same time France is pushing to get rid of illegal immigrants. So I don't know quite why Macron feels he's in a position to lecture the Italians. It is hypocritical, and I can understand the Italians being angry about that. I also think that Macron and Merkel would do well to remember that of all European countries, Italy, perhaps more than any, except maybe Malta and Greece, has been under pressure from this migration crisis. I want to be very clear here. My heart goes out to these migrants. I don't think that anyone should be attacking them. I do think that they're desperate people. Anyone who would cross the Mediterranean knowing how many thousands die every year must be in a desperate position. So I don't quite buy this. I know they're all just economic migrants pretending to be refugees, as some on the far right claim. I don't believe that. I believe that anyone who's going to risk their life in this way is in a desperate situation. Um, I've known people personally who have come across North Africa by foot, and they've been in this situation. It really is heartbreaking. It's very hard to see. But there's that compassionate side, and then there is a practical side. And the practical side is that no country can simply take boatload after boatload after boatload of people. This was 629 people. Now, all of those people would need to be housed. Their paperwork would need to be brought through. They would need to get paperwork. It is not a simple thing. And I think some of those on the more, let's say, the side of things, it's just, oh, we should be compassionate and let people in, fail to recognize, well, actually, they need to be housed somewhere. Um, so is it really humane giving people hope that they can just come to Europe, without any restrictions at all? Maybe Italy's taking the sort of hardline Australian approach of send out a tough message, we're not going to accept you anymore. I'll be honest, I have some difficulties with that, but at the same time, I understand it. And I think anyone who's critical of Italy needs to understand the position that they're in. A country cannot simply be expected to take an unlimited number of people. Now, European countries, even in the south of Europe, don't actually have the highest proportion of refugees in the world. Unless I'm mistaken, countries like Turkey, Pakistan, and some parts of Central Africa have the highest proportion of refugees in the world. However, within the European context, definitely the southern countries have been taking more than their fair share. And that's something that critics of the new Italian government need to understand. Um, so, what is the answer? There is no easy answer. Notably, this apparently doesn't mark an open door policy for Spain. So, Spain's sort of opening its doors to this particular case. And this was a particularly large vessel. But the fact of the matter is, thousands of people have died in the Mediterranean. There are evil people traffickers who are exploiting these poor, vulnerable people. I mean, they're wicked. Um, I think I think there needs to be pressure put on the countries that these people are coming from. I'm under no illusions, for example, that the regime of Isaias Afwerki, who's one of the world's most brutal but least documented dictators in Eritrea, is going to change it overnight. So saying, "Oh, please change your ways," to stop people fleeing your country. Obviously, that's not going to work. But um, we need to look at where most people are coming from and really put pressure on those governments, either to get a ceasefire, because as soon as conflict is one of the biggest problems in terms of obviously creating instability in a country. If at least you have a ceasefire or a peace settlement, then you have a situation whereby at least people are not necessarily in immediate danger. There may be repression, but at least there is not immediate war instability. But the reality is there is no simple answers to this. Um, but I do think that you need to have a situation where I guess the approach Italy has taken is if we refuse them, they'll not come back because migrants speak to each other. There's word of mouth. People aren't going to make that risk if they think they're going to be refused on the other side. It could be argued that for the last 3 years, people have been risking their lives precisely because European countries have been so generous. And I think there might be something in that, especially Italy. Incidentally, it's not a case that Italy has just pulled up the drawbridge and said, oh, to hell with them. Their vessels apparently have been handing out humanitarian supplies to the Aquarius. So for France and local Spanish politicians to demonize Italy as being heartless, I think is very unfair. And I don't really know what Macron's playing at. I rather respected Emmanuel Macron. I thought he was a skilled statesman, but I think this is, this really is hypocritical. And I don't really know what he's playing at by attacking Italy in such a way. Maybe it's a backlash against Italy's Euroscepticism. I don't know, but it's you can believe in the humanitarian side of this, and that should never ever be dismissed because each of these people are, they're not statistics; they're human beings with their own stories, their own lives, but in the end of the day, countries simply cannot be expected to take an unlimited number of people with no end in sight, and that is what has been happening. Let me know your thoughts.